Hey, here's the IABS form, and it's totally got my broker's name on it and my information on it, so here you go. Texas says I have to do it. If you are presenting your IABS form this way, you may want to hang out for a couple of minutes. Hi, welcome to Monday with Micah. I'm your host, Micah. Now, how are you presenting your IABS form? Is it just, here you go, I have to give this to you, or here's my information, here's your information about our services? That's not how this is done. That's not how any of this is done. This form is for you to turn customers into clients. And yes, there's a difference, and you need to know the difference so that you can figure out the 4 types of agency and ask people, here's what this form should really be called. You ready? How would you like to move forward today? That's what this form should be called, because that in essence is what we're asking every customer in our substantive dialogue when we are giving the IABS to them. Now, let's start with the difference between a customer and a client. A customer is someone who we do not represent. We do not represent them in a listing agreement. We do not represent them in a buyer representation or a tenant representation. They are not our clients. We do not represent them. Therefore, we only owe them 2 fiduciary responsibilities for people that we do not represent. And that is, we only owe them honesty and fairness. That's it. In fact, they don't get any of what people pay for, and that is no advice or opinions. And this is where agents have problems, because we should be drawing a line here that we cannot cross, because the moment that we start providing advice and opinions to a customer, guess what they have just become through implied agency? They have become our client simply by providing them advice and opinions. And that could be something as easy as the buyer asking you at an open house, what do you think this house is worth? Ooh. Well, I think, in my estimation, that this house should be somewhere around the 250s to 260s. Guys, you just turned that customer into a client through implied agency because you began giving advice and opinions. We have to draw the line, and remember, this should be called, how would you like to move forward? We want them to expressly say, yes, I'll be your client, or yes, you be my agent, so that we know exactly how we're moving forward today after we hand out the IABS form. Let's define client. Well, we do represent a client. That means there is either an oral or written buyer representation, or there's a written listing agreement, or that could also be a tenant representation agreement. But we do represent them. Got it. So we also owe them old car. We owe them all of our fiduciary duty: obedience, loyalty, disclosure, confidentiality, accounting, and reasonable care and diligence. All of those things are reserved for clients. Now, we have to place our clients, number 1, and that means if they are in our representation agreement, they have agreed to move forward with us, that now we can give them advice and opinions. Great. So this IABS form, I would love for it to be changed to, how would you like to move forward today? As a customer, where I do not represent you, I can only provide you with honesty and fairness, and I cannot give you advice and opinions today. And in fact, every property that we go and look at today, if I don't represent you, that means I represent the seller. That means you guys were at my sub-agency session and have listened and paid attention in Mondays with Micah. Or, Mr. Buyer, would you like to be my client, where I do represent you? I'll give you all of my fiduciary duties. I'll place you number 1, not the seller, And I'll be able to give you advice and opinions as we walk through this property today. The problem is some agents feel like they need to nail people down for 6 months, for an entire county, for an entire neighborhood. It could be as small as one address. Yes, your market area could be as small as one address that you'd be representing them. Now, the IABS form is there for you to give. The key word is give. The state of Texas requires all licensees to give information about brokerage services. Well, that is the 4 types of agency. Let's list them. Seller agency, letting customers know they could get in a relationship with us through them signing a listing agreement. They can be our seller. We'll represent them. So that they chose client. That's how they wanted to move forward today. Number 2, buyer agency is the second type of agency in Texas, and we're telling them through an oral or written buyer representation agreement, you can choose to be my client and I'll be your agent. Great. They choose client. Number 3 type of agency in Texas is intermediary. And now you guys are intermediary pros because you've watched my other videos. But with intermediary, we have a signed listing agreement and a signed buyer representation agreement. So in intermediary, they've chosen client. You guys, 3 out of 4 options on the IABS are for them to choose client as the way they'd like to move forward. So the 4th type of agency in Texas has to be the customer option, and it is. The 4th type of agency is sub-agency, and that is when a buyer chooses not to be represented, but to be a customer. So from now on, when you're presenting your information about brokerage services, I have to give this form to you so that I can ask you how you would like to move forward today, as a customer or as a client. Explain their options and explain what customer and client means and ask them, how would you like to move forward today? As a customer or as a client? And even if it's just for one address, I would love to represent you, and everybody walks away knowing exactly how they're being represented, and we start taking away from agency being the number 2 most sued upon offense in real estate. When people are informed, they make better decisions, they make lasting relationships with their agent because everything is out front, nothing is hidden. Remember, you are now more educated in agency. An educated agent is a more successful agent, and we will see you at the next session of Mondays with Micah. Why does real estate education have to be boring? It doesn't have to. Real estate education can be fun. It can be hilarious. It can be a blast. And you know where it is a blast? Right here on LOL Lessons in Real Estate YouTube channel. Right here, you can subscribe and get notifications every time awesome new videos drop. Boom. Join us. LOL Lessons in Real Estate. It's the most fun you'll ever have learning about real estate, I promise.